Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the January 12th, 2023 regular board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 2:06 p.m. and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District was within the territory of the Seashelt and Squamish First Nations. So we have an amended agenda before us. Is there any additions to the agenda? No? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Alton? Oh, sorry, Director Toth made the motion. Director McMahon seconded. All in favor? That passed. Great. So the next item of business is the minutes. We have a special board meeting minutes of December 15th, 2022, which is Annex A, pages 1 to 30. Are there any omissions or errors within the minutes? No? Hearing none. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Director, let me see, what do I got here? Director White, and seconded by Director Bax. No discussions? Good. All those in favor? Any opposed? No? Good. Motion carries. So the next item is business arising from the minutes and unfinished business. So directors, is there any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business you'd like to arise? No? Hearing none? Then just like that, we're through to presentations and delegations. We have our delegation come forward already. Glad to have you here. You're going to present the Poverty Reduction Action Plan. And that's Annex B, page 31 for us. And just wondering if you could introduce yourself, state your organization, let us know what you're up to. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Just get my screen going here. Yeah, so thank you very much. My name is Chris Hergesheimer, and I'm the project manager for the Poverty Reduction Project with the Sunshine Coast Resource Center. And just want to thank you all for the time this afternoon and to let you know that this poverty reduction project from November to July was in fact commissioned by the SCRD, Seashelt, and the town of Gibsons, funded by a UBCM grant, which is facilitated through the Sunshine Coast Resource Center. And why is it not advancing? Excuse me here. Does anyone, please, this is, my slides are not moving.
It's harassing you, eh?
There they are, sorry. Though for those of you who may or may not know about the Sunshine Coast Resource Center, the mission, vision, and values is really for building a healthy and inclusive coast, and some of their recent work over the last number of years has been in the realm of poverty and poverty reduction. So brings us to the question of what is poverty, and an understanding that poverty is more than economic. Poverty is understood in our context as opportunity for all, and that's coming out of the Government of Canada's poverty reduction strategy, looking at poverty meaning lacking the resources, means, choices, and power necessary to acquire and maintain a basic standard and to participate in society. So if we look at poverty in Canada, 2015 to 2019, there were very significant gains made, a reduction in poverty of nearly 10%. So 1.3 million people being lifted out of poverty, 400,000 of those children, and in British Columbia, a reduction of about 7% over those 4 years. But if we look from 2020 on up to the present, some pandemic and inflation-induced challenges are leading to slower reductions and or reversal of gains in some cases. And that last mile with everything, that 5 to 10% to elimination is the most challenging, and it will require integrated community-level solutions. Another thing to mention is that poverty disproportionately impacts. So when we look at those numbers across Canada, they're not equally distributed. We see higher rates of poverty in lone parent households, seniors, immigrants, refugees, persons with physical or learning disabilities, complicated mental health, intergenerational trauma, and other socioeconomic barriers. So it's very important to understand that 10% is not equally across the board. And just to put it in monetary terms, a person living with disabilities is getting paid about $16,300 annually. Incomes like this can contribute to homelessness, unstable housing, mental health challenges. They can be burdens on the healthcare system. And when we have a market basket measure of around $24,000 or $26,000 as the official poverty line, and we're seeing incomes like this, there's a vast discrepancy there. So just to put it in monetary terms. Some highlights from the 2020 BC Poverty Report card specific to the coast, some of them quite shocking. We can see that over 1 in 4, so 27% of children here on the coast living in poverty. And on the far side there, the poverty rate for children in lone parent families is almost 5 times as high as those in couple parent families. So once again, those disproportionate impacts seen. So that brings us to the poverty reduction project that we're undertaking at this point in time. And this is a project that builds on the poverty reduction strategy, which was carried out in 2019, 2020, published in 2021, also by the Resource Center. You can go to the website and find that document as well as all other appendices there. And so this project takes some of those recommendations and tries to turn them into actionable projects. And the second thing is it sets the foundation for building capacity and more efficient and effective collaborative work into the years ahead. This project is only funded until July, and so it's unlikely to produce significant social change in that time, but setting the foundation for capacity will be extremely valuable in the years ahead. So we're working in 5 areas or 5 different activities, and I'll go through each of these in turn. The first activity is around financial management and empowerment, so really looking at taxes being foundational. Access to other income that you may be eligible for is severely restricted if you are not able to do your taxes and therefore access those benefits. So there's already a free tax clinic running, and we're looking to see a 20 to 25% increase in the usage of that clinic, as well as enhanced promotion and uptake of forms. Bureaucratic forms, government forms, disability forms, income assistance forms can be complex, and you may in fact be leaving benefits and income on the table for lack of those 3 things. And also looking at financial management and empowerment. So when and if people do move above that poverty line and you're in a stable position, how do you stay there? And what kind of knowledge and learning is needed to help people maintain that so we don't see people slipping back into those circumstances? The second activity is around digital equity and inclusion, and I don't need to mention that in the year 2023, it is a digital world, and digital exclusion and digital inequity has major implications that are beyond economic. They have to do with unequal access to health through telemedicine, scheduling, finding housing, and various other things that require access to that. So we're really looking at gaps in 3 areas, doing a market scan to find out what knowledge is missing, what is missing on the tech front in terms of actual things you can put your hands on, phones, computers, as well as infrastructure. Where are there gaps in broadband access, and how can we look to sort of begin to level that? And we're looking to have a steering committee made up of persons with lived experience and individuals, and impact people on that front. The third area is a large project around communications and storytelling coast-wide, so really focused on shifting the narratives around poverty. And we're focusing in 4 specific areas: childcare, housing, food security, and transportation. And we also have some targeted communications of our other activities to help with promotion of those financial tools, digital equity and things, but it's really directed at nudges and overall understanding and helping people come to grips with the scope and scale of poverty here locally. The fourth activity is around social planning with a healthy communities framing and the idea of collaborative working. So we are out there collecting, mapping resources, assets, interests. How can different groups and organizations, the business community, the government work together? There was some talk in the past of a social planning function at the SCRD, and so we'd be open to a conversation about what that looks like. But it's really moving ahead and making sure that we have shared measurement, shared goals, and good information flows between people working on the ground and people who are doing some strategy around the power of collective impact and collective working. So some of our work might include the poverty lens framing, which was an appendix to the report, looking at how we make decisions and that kind of lens, whether it's a business decision, an initiative, a project, making sure we're understanding the implications of our decisions, as well as living wage advocacy and information flow procedures, data sharing, things like that. The fifth activity is focused really on information, support, and referral services. So there's a lot of informal referral actors out there, whether they work at the Aquatic Center or the library, who we want to make sure understand where and how those resources work together, and so they can direct people. Also making sure that everyone is using the same updated version of services, so that we're not looking at lists from 2 years ago, that we're all being brought to a central place where the most up-to-date information around providers and things is brought into one place. And so this centralized hub for coast-wide services, there's a lot of action that comes from knowing where those services are. So in terms of what's next for us, we're going to keep doing this work over the next 6 months, but I did just want to put this out there for information. There's possible funding for phase 2 activities through UBCM, and the grant is due on March 15th, and it would allow us to phase a few of these activities with some additional funding. A lead municipal grant holder would be required for us to make that application. The challenging thing is timing. We will not have all our outcomes in July by the time the application is due in March. So we'll have to do some projections around what we hope to see in order to make a successful application. But we are planning to phase a few of these projects, specifically around digital equity and the information support and referral, which we feel could use a little bit more time and deliver the impacts we want to see. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Wow, that was great, and in the time limit too. Well done. So, directors, do you have any questions of the delegation? Kelly? Or
Yeah,
sorry, Director Bax.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hergesheimer, for that wonderful presentation. I want to thank you for this hard work, and I want to know what is it that the board can do for you?
I think at this point we're very early on in the project, and so to look at what that support of that second application in the middle of March might be as the sort of lead and sponsoring agency, and to keep the conversations potentially open around social planning. I think there's a lot of value and strength that comes from initiatives and projects that see government involvement on committees, and really looking at multi-sector committees of business, nonprofits, persons with lived experience, government, coming together to solve complex problems really requires that we work across those silos. And so I'd like to keep the conversation and the lines of communication open moving ahead if possible.
Yes, follow.
My follow-up is through the chair, is what can staff do to assist this organization?
I was actually going to, I was curious about the same question, what the next steps would be here. I'm assuming we probably had arranged or were part of a lead organization that got the original grant to do this. Was that correct?
Yeah, the District of Sechelt is the municipal holder of this, and the grant is facilitated through the Resource Center. So the second round of funding could potentially happen through the District of Sechelt again, or another leader. So
Yes.
at this point, we're not, we have the resources to carry on the project as anticipated up until July. The challenge with projects like this is when the funding runs out, you can end up with a gap before that next round of funding comes in, and some momentum can be lost and some gains can either stagnate or even in fact work backwards without attention to them. So we're looking at how we can not see that kind of valley and be able to find support to continue this work past July if possible.
So I would take, if I got this correct, this was strictly for our information and for us
Yes.
to express our support. And actually, if you need further help from us, you'll come back with a specific ask at that point?
I most certainly will. This was just to bring you up to speed, and it's pretty much a project plan, and I just wanted the board and everyone to understand what we're doing and that we are running full speed ahead on this work, and we do expect to see some outcomes by July, and the hope is to be able to continue this work into the future. So we would return with a specific ask if there was more.
Yes, is anybody else got a question? I don't see, so I have one. Your organization must take the lead, but engage other volunteer groups in specific activities. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I can see where volunteer groups would be quite eager to help here.
Yes.
Okay, and the last one, my last question, I'm a curious kind of guy. You mentioned help in tax preparation.
Yes.
To actually help them with their income. I was trying to figure out how the two fit together for someone with $16,000 a year income. So,
so the Resource Center currently runs a free tax clinic for helping people with very simple taxes. And the challenge to people accessing other benefits, whether it be, Canada Child Benefit or climate action or GST or rental subsidies, is that you need to have your taxes complete. So for people who do not have their taxes complete, they're essentially leaving some of those benefits on the table. So we're really looking at building that foundation, and then we can start to see what are those other benefits that you may be eligible for, and then that next level of how can we help you complete those forms and put those systems in place so that you can be accessing that money.
perfect, that was great. Thank you very much for the presentation. Then I see no more questions, and so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it was very interesting. It should have been a reminder, but it was kind of like a wake-up call to me. So, thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks.
Yes. Could I have a motion to receive the delegation materials? Yes. Director Toth, Director McMahon, all in favor? Good. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we can proceed now. We've been moving on to reports. And this is Annex C, page 32 to 34. And it's the Electoral Area Services Committee recommendations number 1 to 6 of December 15th, 2022. And I believe we would like to pull one of the items for discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to pull recommendation number 2 for debate. Please and thank you.
Okay, everybody know what recommendation 2 is? So that's done. So now I could move on to a motion to adopt the remaining recommendations in the block. Specifically, EAS Service Committee recommendations number 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Can I have a motion? Director McMahon, seconded Director Bax. No discussions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's passed. So, Director Bax, I think.
I would like to recuse myself from conversation on this next recommendation.
Good, thank you very much.
All right.
So we're discussing recommendation number 2, which is the LCRB Liquor Primary New Outdoor Patio Application 038526 for the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 219 in Roberts Creek. Director Gabius, could you give us some background on this?
Yeah, thank you for indulging my request. I just want to make sure that we got this right, because I felt like I didn't get it right when we were at the EAS committee meeting. So my concern is that it should, like, to me, the concern was not the noise produced by unamplified music between 5 and 8. To me, the concern was what the neighbors had raised, like, so the late, people, the concerts happening inside that were very loud and people pouring into the street late at night. But to me, to agree to a liquor license for a patio, but not to agree to the music, I feel like it should be either or. Either we don't recommend it, or we let it, we don't amend it with the music clause. So, like, do I make sense?
Let me ask the question of staff first off. It sounds like we might have a new motion here, and I'd like to make sure that we haven't acted on it and we could in fact entertain one.
Thank you, Chair. So at this point, this is just a recommendation from committee. So the board may choose to adopt it, you may choose not to adopt it, you can choose to amend it, or you can choose to make a completely new resolution. It's just here for your consideration.
Great, thank you. I guess we can have discussion first without a motion. Is that okay? Okay. Director Paul?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just questioning, does the Gumboot restaurant not have this restriction too? Because they have an outside performance thing that's like within 50 yards of this place, is it not? Well, a little bit further, but the same general area, and they're allowed to perform outside with the same restrictions. So I would just say, maybe figure out if theirs is a certain time limit. I think it's usually they have music during dinner time, which I think ends by 8 or 9 o'clock. But they've had live performances there too, and they have an outdoor stage with a grass area. So I just hope we're not going against something that's just within 100 yards of it saying no to that thing. So that's just my concern on that.
Yes, thank you. Director McMahon?
Yeah, I'm just going to recap where I think we are. We're being asked for our recommendation. Of course, we're not the decision maker here. The liquor branch advertised this and notified all the neighbors and asked the neighbors whether they were in support or against the application. And the majority of the neighbors were against the application because of a lot of concerns that they expressed, many of which were around noise. And in my view, to ignore the concerns of the neighbors and support the application for the outdoor entertainment would be a bit egregious. Like, I think the concerns should be taken seriously, and it's obvious that there is a relationship between the Legion and the neighbors that needs to be worked on. It needs to be improved. Personally, if they wish to serve liquor outdoors, that seems actually like a good idea, given that COVID has not left. And I don't think anybody expressed concerns about that. But there are noise issues, so it seemed to me like it was a good halfway place to be, to acknowledge that the Legion would like some more space to expand upon in the summertime, but to also acknowledge that they have some work to do on their behavior around noise. So, you know, I was in favor of this particular compromise position. And of course, we don't make the decision. So, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to talk on the subject? No? Director Gabius, would you like to try a motion on this to see what the board would, the will of the board? I know it's, maybe staff could help us with it. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Director Henderson, sorry.
No, thank you, Chair. Just, I wasn't able to attend this meeting, but I note that the recommendation from the committee is different than staff's recommendation. So that's in itself a modification, I guess. So there's been substantive discussion, obviously, on that, but I just wanted to make that clear. We're voting on something that is slightly different than what staff had recommended.
How did you know that?
Because I looked at the agenda.
Oh. Did staff's original recommendation include music?
There was no restriction on
No.
music from 5 to 8.
Yes.
Okay.
It would allow music, unamplified music from 5 to 8, and the change we made was to not allow music, unamplified music.
So the motion that you were asking, would like to put forward for reconsideration is probably the original staff recommendation then?
Correct.
Okay, maybe we can see if staff could read that to us?
I can.
So here was the original recommendation, Director Gabius, and that the Sunshine Coast Regional District, SCRD, respond to LCRB recommending that the proposed liquor primary outdoor patio application proceed to LRB review and the issuance of the liquor license and the operation of the patio under this license be subject to the following requirements. Hours for outdoor music or entertainment events on the subject patio be limited to 5 to 8 p.m. Thursday to Saturday each week between May 1st and August 31st and Canada Day each year. No outdoor amplified sound be allowed on the subject patio, and at all times, outdoor non-amplified sound generated from the subject patio be limited to a maximum of 70 decibels measured at lot lines, and the noise level be monitored by dedicated personnel of the Legion during operation hours of the patio. Here, I'll give you a chance to read it. I know it's a little hard. Is that the motion you'd like to make? Okay. Do we have a seconder? Well, we do now. Sorry, what's that?
Sorry, Chair. Director Toth and I were discussing whether we had a vote, and
Yeah,
I believe we do not.
I was just going to ask our staff who would be voting on this.
We did not, at the committee's agenda showed that we were not to vote, so I think we can take that as
I
given.
suspect it's rural areas, but I'm not sure.
1 minute, Chair. So the rules are subject to Local Government Act at board. So at committee, it's the procedure bylaw, which is the area participants. And the municipalities are not in the rural planning service, so I'm going to say this is administration and operation of a service. So it'll be the rural areas only.
Director White?
We shouldn't have got into this can of worms. I accept that. I assumed I didn't vote on this, but this is not a decision being made by the board. It's a recommendation going to the liquor board. So, is that rural planning? I would say it's not. It's just governance. It's.
Yes, Corporate Officer?
Can we just have a 5-minute recess, please?
Okay, we'll take a short recess until we're clear on the voting rules. Yes. Okay, we're back to the January 12th, 2022 regular board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. And we were looking for a ruling on the voting for this seconded motion. So, Corporate Officer, could you give us your ruling?
Thank you, Chair, for giving me time to contemplate. I think that what we've determined is that because this is not a decision specifically to land use, that we will we will establish that the vote is all directors, one vote each, which is the standard default for the Local Government Act for governance decisions.
Okay, thank you. So I will ask if there's any further discussion, because now we have some more voting members. Director McMahon?
Sure, and I don't want to say, in our previous discussion in the other committee, we all expressed support for the Legion, which is a great community organization. However, some of my other concerns included their capacity to do the monitoring of the noise levels that is prescribed in the recommendations, and the potential impact on our bylaw staff, because when there are noise complaints, that's who gets called. The LCRB, who issue the license, are not in a great position to do much enforcement here on the coast. So that was my rationale for that recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to say anything, but since I get to vote on it anyways, I might as well state, like, I have concerns with the Legion's ability to enforce, you know, dedicated personnel to monitor decibel levels at the property line. I know this came up in conversation previously when we discussed the item. I think it's an undue burden on the Legion, so I'll leave it there.
Any other comments? No, seeing none? Then I will ask all those in favor of the motion. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3 opposed. 4, sorry? Just 3? Yes. Okay, it is 3 opposed. Oh, Director Paul? Were you
Sorry, I'm just confused on what we're voting on. Are we voting it in the way it is, or the amendment to the previous one? Because we can't see what the previous rating was. It was just written out or read out. So I'm just a little bit confused about what the stipulations are. Which one are we voting on?
Yes, Director Gabby has proposed a new motion which I read out, and it's actually the original recommendations from staff. Would you like it read again?
Well, I mean, on screen would be a lot better just to see the stuff or whatever, but if you can read it again, that'd be great, because I was just a little bit confused. That's the one with the time restrictions between 5 and 8, and that's what we're voting on, not the current form, correct?
Yes, we'll have it read out then. Yeah. Here, I can do it if you'd like. Yes, I'll read it out. I have a copy. Oh, we're going to put it on the screen. Oh, this is good. Wow, high tech. Director Paul, you're reading that as well with us?
Yes, I am. I can see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Henderson?
Just while we're all reading it, and this is more constrained than what the Legion's request is, I believe. The Legion requested no covenant, if in quickly reading their letter.
Staff, could you comment on that?
Sorry.
What happens when you don't let the municipal directors come to the electoral area services committee?
I said I'd rather stay out of it.
You asked.
I believe I have his copy.
So page 26 of the agenda of December 15th is their letter where they're saying, we hope the SRD directors will consider our request to extend our license area without a covenant, the covenant being about any noise restrictions.
Yes, GM Hall.
Thank you, Chair. So the initial referral from the LCRB came to SCRD several months ago, and initially, staff's analysis suggested, and the recommendation that was initially brought forward was the placement of a covenant on title, which is an approach that has been used for other properties with liquor licenses on the coast. And at that time, questions were raised by either the committee or the board, I can't recall, about whether there was an alternative to SCRD holding a covenant and rather putting responsibility for the enforcement of conditions on the regulatory body responsible for licensing. And so in the second report that came to the board, the one that is projected on the screen now, it was revised to suggest that rather than a covenant, that LCRB be asked to consider that these be conditions of the license. So it takes SCRD out of the role of being the enforcer of a covenant and puts the onus on the Legion to maintain their license by adhering to the conditions that LCRB might set. So it was an attempt to stay in our lane and reduce the demand for service that SCRD might experience going forward. Thank you.
Yes, it's good to have a memory refresh. I remember that now. Yes, Director White.
That sounds like a good approach. I just, back to the question about what the Legion wanted, I did see in the staff report, it mentioned that they said that music would end at 8. They did say music would end at 8. I don't know if they, I presume they wanted amplified music, but yeah.
I'm going to
So
need
it's not no restrictions at all. They
Yeah.
planned that it would end at 8.
Yes, I think I need a ruling from our corporate officer here because I had called a vote and I was asked to clarify the motion, which we did. But we're now into discussions and I'm not sure that that's an appropriate time.
The motion is seconded, it's on the floor. You can debate the motion. If you feel the debate has been exhausted, you can cut debate if you wish, call the question.
Good, thanks. I'm comfortable with the debate as long as we're following the rules. So I have hands up. Director Toth? No? Okay. And Director Paul, you're good now? Ready to vote again?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, then I will call the question and I'll start from the beginning. And those in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed to the motion? 1, 2, 3. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Good debate. Now we'll just pause for a minute while we get Director back. So would those opposed like their vote recorded?
Sure, it's not necessary for me. It's not necessary.
Director, would you like yours recorded? No? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to the, yes, Director Bax.
My video's been stopped by the host, and I'd ask that the host release me from video purgatory.
Video jail. I suspect that that's being done as we talk. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so we do have an amended item to add now, which is the Committee of the Whole Recommendations number 2 and 4 of January 12th, 2023, which is Annex D, page 35. Okay, I have them. Can I have a motion to accept the recommendations? Yes, Director Henderson, seconded by Director McMahon. Any discussions on it? Seeing none? Those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries, motion carries. And I didn't need my paper copy. Okay, so we have no communications. So now we're to a motion that Director McMahon made on the Emergency Operations Center activations. Director McMahon, would you like to talk to that motion?
I'm just slightly confused because there is a late item on my agenda that is, oh, it's after me. I'm sorry, of course, it's a bylaw. Silly me. All right. Keeping track of all of this is so much fun. So I put in a notice of motion asking for a staff report on the impacts to the SCRD of the repeated and overlapping EOC activations over the last 3 years. There is a lot of concern right now in the province about proposed new legislation on emergency operations in BC that would download yet more responsibilities to local governments. And I think it's really important for us to understand the impacts that this has already had on our organization. Hence my motion. I did not put a specific timeline on the staff report because I appreciate that we're in the middle of budget and this is not a good time to be trying to produce a report of this type. But if staff wanted to suggest a reasonable timeline, I'd be very amenable to that. Otherwise, perhaps we could let the motion stand as is.
Staff, oh, sorry. Okay, we have seconders. Seconded by Director White, so we're into discussion then. Staff, did you have any comments on what?
No, I was just going to suggest you second it to move the motion onto the floor
Okay. And Director McMahon was inquiring as to whether staff thought we should put a date or suggest when it might be able to be handled, this request.
Thank you for the question, Chair. There we go. From staff's point of view, we have some upcoming work relating to after action analysis and debriefing from the drought EOC that this could fit with. I don't have a detailed timeline for that, but I expect it to be in the first 2 quarters of this year. So if before the summer, the typical August break is acceptable, then I think that there's synergy with planned work there. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Henderson?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to see it sooner rather than later. I mean, I think it does impact on our budgets and our staffing allocations. Hopefully it doesn't, but I fear it will impact on our workload. So knowing that and knowing what we should be going to the province to get, perhaps in addition to what is currently provided through the EMBC program, I certainly support the intent of this motion, but let's figure it out. And I hope, to echo Mr. Hall's comments, that a lot of what we're asking is what we'd be applying to the province or reporting to the province anyways.
Oh, yes, I never thought of that aspect. Yes, CAO?
Thanks. I actually received some information through the Caribou Regional District this afternoon that while this meeting's been going on, I forwarded to all the directors related to changes in the Emergency Program Act and some of the concerns that many of the regional districts have expressed around the Emergency Program Act modernization and its ineffectiveness likely for regional districts. It's also confirmed that with Russell Dyson that this topic will be on the agenda for discussion at the Chair and CAO conference in Nanaimo in March. And so given what GM Hall has said, workloads, all of those implications, There may be some advantages to allow some of those meetings to occur before we start doing a whole bunch of staff work. However, we are here to serve at your pleasure. If you so direct, we will do it earlier. There may be synergies in allowing some of this other work to occur. I know that there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes on behalf of regional districts, trying to influence the province to do something better than what's currently proposed with the changes to the Act. And this would be directly related.
Thank you. Director McMahon?
Yeah, further on timelines, the scuttlebutt is that the act will drop in March, become public, and it is definitely on the agenda for the AVICC conference in April. Would Q2 be a reasonable timeline for this? Okay. Perhaps, can I propose an amendment to my own motion to
Yes, I believe that's entirely appropriate.
staff prepare a report by Q2 outlining the financial, et cetera? In Q2? In Q2. That's what I meant. Thank you.
We have a second to the amendment. Do we have any discussions? No? Okay. Then we will vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. So now we're on to voting on the main motion. All those in favor of the motion as amended? Any opposed? No? That passes. Thank you very much. So we're now on to item number 6, which is the Sunshine Coast Regional District Water Rates and Regulations Amended Bylaw number 422.42 of 2023, which is Annex E, pages 36 to 38. So this will be, the staff there's a receipt of a staff report. Could we, would someone like to talk to that report? Yes, go ahead, Corporate.
The CFO will be speaking to this report.
Oh, hi Tina, or sorry, hi CFO Perot. Okay. Would you please fill us in?
Yes, thank you. The brief report outlines that when we were updating the bylaw into prepare for billing, that there was an oversight in overstating the cubic meter rate for meters. And so this particular bylaw is to amend that in preparation for 2023 billing.
Great, that sounds pretty straightforward. Any questions from directors? Yes, Director Bax.
I'd just like to get this clear that we have it on paper that we're charging more, and then we're dropping the price back now. So we're charging less now. Is that what's going on? So the rate was in error set at what's that number? There it is. Set at $2.56 a cubic meter, but the proper rate is $1.93 a cubic meter, and we're going to amend the bylaw to read correctly $1.93 per cubic meter. Am I reading this correctly?
As part of the report for the rates, we had stipulated that we had recommended that the rate be increased for water meters by 23.64%. And so it was actually raised inaccurately to over 64%. So that reflects that $2. So what we're trying to do is bring it in line with what was actually intended, which is the 23% increase, which would reflect a cubic meter rate from 156 to 193.
Thank you. Director Henderson?
Thank you, Chair. I guess anytime I see changes in numbers, I worry that given this is a complicated model, it's not one thing that's probably been missed or a problem. So I guess I'm asking the obvious, but you've gone through this, I'm sure, with a fine tooth comb, your staff, Ms. Perot, to make sure it's the only one. Thank you.
CFO?
Yes.
Thank you. I see no further questions. Okay, so the voting will be A2, B2, D2, E2, F2, and C Shelf 6. Okay, so this is the first reading for Sunshine Coast Regional District Water Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 422.42 of 2023. May I have a motion for first reading? Director Toth, seconded Director McMahon, Director Bax. All those in favor? Sorry. Oh. What did I do wrong? Okay.
Technical problems.
Oh, technical problems, so I see, okay. Well, I see you there now. Okay, any opposed? That carries. Thank you. So this is the second reading of Sunshine Coast Regional District Water Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 422.42 of 2023. Can I have a motion for second reading? Director Gabius, seconded Director Bax. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. This is the third reading of the Sunshine Coast Regional District Water Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 422.42 of 2023. Can I have a motion for third reading? Director Gabius, seconded Director Henderson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Okay, this is for adoption of Sunshine Coast Regional District Water Rates and Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 422.42 of 2023. Can I have a motion for adoption? Director Bax, seconded Director Toth. All those in favor? Any opposed? That will carry. Let's see, we traditionally have directors' reports at this point. Shall we, are we in favor of skipping director reports and following the agenda? I have a motion on the floor for adjournment. Do I have a seconder? I second. Is there any discussion? No? Bunch of bullies. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you for rescuing us, Director White. Is there any questions from the public? I don't think we have. Do we have public here? Okay. If anybody would like, has a question, if they could put up their hand, we would promote you. No questions then. Okay. Thank you. Then we're done. Thanks a lot, everybody.